Every year I know we gonna go hard. We been that team ever since Bart started. All my cheese heads go pack go. Ain't show with no mercy, cutting no slack, no. I ain't a bad sport and I'll even wish you good luck. Only thing I will.
Hey, welcome into Lombardi's Legends podcast. I am Wags, and joining me as always is Dane, and we're recording here on Thursday night on Halloween's Eve of October 30th. So thank you all for joining us. If you're here following us on our live stream on Facebook or on a YouTube channel, appreciate you. Go ahead and say hello in the chat. But it's been a couple of weeks coming off a nice win at Pittsburgh, and Packers are 5-1-1. And Dane, it's hard to believe, but last time we connected, we weren't really feeling too good about Packers and maybe not playing their best, but coming off a big road win. How you feeling tonight, man? And how you feeling about Packers after their big win this week?
Wags, I feel way better right now than I have, honestly, since week 2. I thought that we saw a complete second half from the team. Love looked tremendous. Kraft looked great. The defense, played, I thought, great ball. They made Aaron Rodgers have a lot of trouble there. So, man, I'm feeling great going into this game. I think that, I didn't expect that. I'll put it that way. On the road against Pittsburgh, against Aaron Rodgers. And I thought that the Packers just really looked like a complete football team, especially in the second half. There's always things to clean up, but Wags, I feel good. And what I can't believe is that we're already talking week 9 of the NFL season. I can't quite grasp that we're already this far along, but feeling good about the team. I'm cautiously optimistic heading into Sunday. I'm glad the Packers are back home playing Carolina. The Lambeau's going to be rocking, dude, on Sunday at noon.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like it's been a minute since Packers have had a road game too. I guess that kind of comes with opening the first 2 games of the season in Green Bay, which hasn't happened and I don't even know how long. And then you've got a week 5 bye. So, we've been home. We had one home game in there, but it just doesn't feel like there's been a lot of games at Lambeau here in the last month because there hasn't. So it'll be nice to get back there. And Dane, it's the Carolina Panthers. This is a team that has had some ups and downs already in the young season, has probably looked better at home than they have on the road. That said, we'll get into this matchup and kind of what this should look like. I know just from a high level standpoint, it's a lot of folks saying, okay, is this a trap game potentially with a big road win this past week? And then looking ahead, you've got the Eagles coming in for a Monday Night Football game next week. But I'll tell you what, Panthers are a team that on paper, the Packers should be able to match up very well and win most of the matchups. But we've seen, it hasn't been too long since we've seen the Packers maybe play with their food a little bit and play down to the competition. So I think it's very much going to be a situation where the Packers need to be worried about themselves and hopefully put together more good football like we saw in the second half in Pittsburgh this last week. So, Dane, maybe we should dive into the injury report. It looked pretty good yesterday, and then a few guys that weren't on the injury report to start the week yesterday got added to it today. The big one, of course, is Quay Walker with a calf injury, undisclosed. He was in pads in uniform at practice today, but did not participate. So I don't know that we have a lot of information to work on, but Dane, never good when you see a midweek addition to the injury report and a guy that was a full participant on Wednesday go to non-participating on Thursday and get added to the injury report. So I don't know that there's a lot to speculate on other than it's just the aesthetics of that don't appear to be great for Quay Walker. But perhaps it's just one of those situations. We'll get more clarity tomorrow. We'll see if he's out there even in a limited capacity. And I don't know if you take any solace in the fact that he was in uniform in pads, albeit not participating in practice today. So that said, hopefully if this is a situation where Quay is going to sit out this week, hopefully it's a situation where we can, and this should be the type of matchup where we can survive a Quay Walker injury if he's unable to go. But any thoughts or any read into the situation or anything else to add on this potential injury?
I'm getting a little tired of the midweek additions to the injury report this year in Green Bay. This isn't the first time this happened. Last week, Matthew Golden, Brinson, the rookie D tackle, were both added midweek. Brinson was inactive, but he's been a healthy scratch at times, so that's not as surprising. Golden was able to go. So I'm not sure if this is an indicator of much, if I'm being honest. I'm not losing sleep over it. That being said, it's never a good thing, right? The dude was off the injury report. Now he's on it. And Quay Wags has been really good for the Packers defensively this year. So it would be a pretty significant loss, I would argue, if he's not out there. He's playing the best football, I think, of his NFL career this year. Last year, he put some good tape up, dealt with some injuries. This year, he's been really good. A lot was made, I thought, last week, too. One of the players for Pittsburgh putting their hand in Quay's face, right? And Quay, of course, has dealt with some temper issues in the past in Green Bay, and he showed a lot of maturity there. They asked him last week after the game, what would 2022 Quay have done? And he was like, it would have been different, right? So it's like it's exciting, right? We're rooting for Quay. We want to see him get out there and play good ball. We'll learn more tomorrow, right? We'll get another injury report, I think, here tomorrow on Friday, but I'm still cautiously optimistic. This is a Packers a training staff and a team that is very, very nitpicky. I feel like at times with reporting injuries and putting injuries and a little more cautious than maybe some teams in the league. So I don't think it's much yet. I'm glad he's in pads today. And Wags, as of now, I expect him to go, but obviously anything can happen in the NFL.
Absolutely. Dane, I wanted to also ask you, Christian Watson returned onto the field last week, and I thought he made a huge impact. Were you surprised at how impactful he was and frankly, how many snaps he ended up getting, not only with some of the receptions he had, but as a blocker, he got out there and seemed like he hadn't missed a beat. So what was your surprise level at the number of snaps and how impactful Christian Watson was last week? And how do you see that playing out here over the next few weeks and moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I was shocked by how much he was out there, Wags. I thought that we were going to get 15, maybe 20 snaps out of him. I thought he was going to be fairly limited. And definitely, I'm legitimately surprised by how much he was able to get out there and play and the impact he had. We know he's an impact player when he's out there. We said it going into all these games. When we get him back, he helps stretch the field. He adds to this offense, certainly. But Wags, the impact was just noticeable, right? He was able to get downfield, both as you mentioned, as a blocker, as a pass catcher, making some pretty big splash plays, but just his physicality, it didn't look like he had missed time. And that's what surprised me, I think, the most is it looked just like Christian Watson that we know. So surprised how much he was out there. I'm curious how he felt the next day. I bet he was a little sore after not playing football for that long. But by all appearances, no setbacks there, expecting him to be out there this week. And if he can stay out there and stack some games together, Wags, look out for this offense. I love the idea of having both Matthew Golden and Christian Watson out there at the same time on the field. They both just add another dimension when they're out there at the same time. I just think that they cause a lot of question marks and challenges for opposing defenses. So we got a glimpse of it last week. I'm looking to see more of it this week. But as much as the pass catching it was that blocking downfield, man. He had some monstrous blocks that were helping open up run lanes, and also some plays at yardage after the catch for Tucker Kraft and other guys that were playing out there. Romeo Dobbs on a play or two as well. So just a big benefit to get Watson back. But to answer your question directly, yeah, I was surprised by how much he played, because I felt he was going to be not held back, but on a little bit more limited snap count. But he proved that he could get out there and run the full route tree and do what he needed to do. So the Packers just kept leaning into him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it will be interesting to see if his number of snaps continues to go up pretty quickly, or if it'll be more of a slow build up. But the fact that he got as many snaps as he did in his first game back probably indicates what the Packers are going to be planning to do. So, Dane, a couple other things on the injury front for the Packers. Offensive line is still a little dinged up, but for the most part, we've been able to see our preferred starting five the last couple of weeks. And it looked for a minute there. We had to hold our breath with Zach Tom, but he was able to come back in and looks like he should be good to go. Just as now add an ailing back to his list of dinged up injuries of that nature. So it thinks it's going to be one of those seasons for Zach Tom, but hopefully he can start to feel more fully healthy soon. And Josh Jacobs, I think it's pretty apparent that he's been toughing it out the last couple of weeks, but a little dinged up. So it's nice to see Manuel Wilson get in there and get some extra work and really look good as a change of pace. And maybe that's a little overused in this case, but honestly, it's I think as much as Josh Jacobs is a workhorse, this is kind of the type of game that you would hope Packers can get out in front, and maybe Emmanuel Wilson gets even more work this week and Josh Jacobs can sit on the sideline in the fourth quarter. But we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. But all in all, how are you feeling about how the offensive line is shaping back up now that we've got our preferred starting five back? I know it takes a little time to gel, especially with Aaron Banks as a new starter that we are adding into the equation. But first of all, and then what are your thoughts on how Emmanuel Wilson is stepping up and spelling Josh Jacobs? It looks like he's potentially going to carve out a little bit more of a role for himself in that backup capacity.
Yeah, the O-line, Wags, I think is a strong point of this team, either offensive or defensively, when all five guys, preferred starters, or frankly six, right? Because we kind of sub in with Sean Ryan and Jordan Morgan at the guard spot. But our preferred six are up. I'll put them up against any offensive line in the league, and I sincerely mean that. I think they're so good. You mentioned Zach Tom. Talk about a tough dude, right? He's a guy that's been dealing with this oblique injury. He's been just battling all year long. And inherently, these guys are all hurt, right? Rasheed Walker's been banged up at times. Like, we're seeing guys and they tough it out. As you said, they tough it out. Zach Tom, a couple weeks ago, played and it sounds like he was in so much pain he didn't even really remember some of the game, right? So, I mean, just to underscore what these guys are putting themselves through and laying it out on the line for the team. Zach Tom, I think, is just proven, right? Not only is he one of the best offensive linemen, period, in the NFL, but he's a leader along the offensive line, and just having him out there, certainly not 100%, but giving 100% and playing really high level still, even with that injury. So just really excited to see this offensive line continue to grow because, they are creating, and I think that they're just going to continue to get better. And Wags, when it gets cold out and Lambeau starts rocking, I mean, that's the five, right? We go as far as that offensive line, I think, takes us. And I think that they can take us extremely, extremely far based on the talent and how they're gelling together right now. You mentioned Emmanuel Wilson. He's a good football player, right? I mean, he's just a good football player. I scratched my head earlier this year. I'll be honest. It seemed like they had put him in on some of these third down passing downs where Chris Brooks, I thought, really thrived last year. And I was kind of curious about that, but I feel like Emmanuel Wilson's really starting to come into his own. And you're right. They're using him as kind of he's spelling Jacobs, and Jacobs certainly, as you said, is a little banged up, I think, and he's trying to tough it out. But he's definitely carving out a role, I think, within this offense as well. What I've noticed, I think we've noticed about Emmanuel Wilson ever since he's first come to Green Bay, is he always falls forward. Right. Like he's some of those running backs, they get hit and, whatever. He's decisive runner. He runs forward and he's a load, I think, to bring down. So I think he's playing really good football. So I want to turn it back onto you for a second with it, Wilson. I mean, what do you think that role looks like going forward? Because obviously Josh Jacobs is dynamic, electric, special. But Wilson, I think, Wags, and tell me what you think, like he can get some snaps, I think, going forward, especially the second half of the year, maybe helping keep Jacobs fresh and not see much of a drop off. They're different runners, but Wilson, I think, really fits this offense well as well.
Yeah, I think you're going to see him start series a few more times, especially get more work, I think, on their side of the field. And then Josh Jacobs is so good in the red zone that if we can be more consistent, I think Coach LaFleur talked about it after this game and in his press conference yesterday. This offense, he wants to see more consistency and less 3-and-outs. I think everybody understands they're not going to put points on literally every possession that they get the football. But this offense is too good not to be at least moving the ball on pretty much every series. And they've had a few too many, frustrating possessions where things just don't work or don't click. And so, I'm not saying Emmanuel Wilson's the cure to that, but I would expect to see him earlier in possessions. So you might see him start some more possessions. And then if Packers get the ball past midfield, I think that's when you can see Josh Jacobs come in. He might even get a whole series occasionally, and sometimes early in the second quarter. Maybe he gets that third series in the game. And that gives Josh a little bit of time to a little extra time to recuperate and rest. And then he doesn't have, at this point of the season, so much wear and tear. I would argue that, I think Josh has proven that he could handle the workload, but if he's a little dinged up at this point, why put him through that? Why ask him to do that when we've got other guys that can step in and take a little bit of that work? So, and dare I say that I think it gives defenses a little bit more of a pass look when Emmanuel Wilson's in there. He's certainly getting handed the football. So I don't want to, make it sound like he can't get some carries, but I think they're going to get more of a pass look with Emmanuel Wilson in there. And I realize that might sound a little strange to say that as if it's a good thing, because with Josh Jacobs in there, they've got to respect the run too. But I think there's just a little bit something about the tempo and that things I think click a little bit more. I was pleased. I think balance is good in this offense, but I was also honestly pleased to see the Packers air it out a little bit more in that second half. And I thought they really found something and found a rhythm. So I honestly wouldn't mind, Dane, seeing the Packers throw the football at a little bit of a higher percentage, particularly when they're on their side of the field. Let's get Jordan some rhythm. Let's get some first downs, and then maybe bring in some of the balance of that rushing attack. Whether that's Emmanuel Wilson or if Josh is coming back onto the field, and we can pound that rock. Worst case scenario in my mind is the balance results in an unfortunate set of plays where we end up in a 3rd and long. It's high leverage play and we don't get a first down. That's going to happen occasionally. But if you're aggressive early in the possession, throwing the football and get some first downs, then maybe those high leverage plays, worst case scenario, you at least got a field goal attempt as an opportunity versus punting the football. So I know it's not as simple as saying we're just going to chuck the ball and throw it every time until you get across midfield. Doesn't work that way. What I would say, though, is I think there's been some times where I know myself and a lot of other Packer fans get a little bit frustrated when even when we throw on first down, it seems like LaFleur's default is, all right, let's run the ball and get into a third and manageable situation. Well, guess what?
Right.
Now all your chips are on third down versus maybe if you throw the ball on second and long and you get a first down, then you don't have to worry about as many high leverage third down situation. And maybe you don't have as many 3 and outs where you're punting the football. So it doesn't always work that way. I realize that that's not going to be the final answer. But I do think that there may be some opportunities to expand and throw balance out the window a little bit for the sake of getting in that offensive rhythm. I thought we saw a little bit more of that in the second half, and there was less of the let's run the ball and get in third and manageable, and more of the let's stay aggressive, keep the foot to the pedal, get some first downs, get downfield, and put points on the board.
Wags, I love what you're saying, and our boy Jordan Love, having I think a really, really strong season here. I mean, I'm looking at stats as you're talking about it. Dude's thrown for almost 1,800 yards, 13 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. His passer ratings at 112.8. Offensive player of the week this week, and well earned, 360 yards, 20 completions in a row. I mean, some of his best football of his career, I thought, was in this past game. He just looked like he was in command. I say all of that, and you're mentioning putting the ball in his hands. I mean, dare I say, has Jordan kind of arrived a little bit? I think the national media is certainly catching on, and maybe maybe LaFleur's catching on too, because I feel like at times Jordan's kind of been, I don't see handcuffed by Matt LaFleur, but I feel like Matt sometimes doesn't let him completely let it rip. And I know Jordan is sometimes slinging, but I mean, he's really the poor decision making, I think, this year more than any season so far. So I ask you, and I know it's a broad question, but like, does it feel a little bit like Jordan Love this season right now is kind of just arrived on the stage as this truly is a franchise quarterback we've got here in Green Bay yet again?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you and I ever doubted that, right? So,
Right.
I mean, look how many times Packers maybe haven't looked that good, and Jordan Love's bailed them out this season. Like even in the tie against the Cowboys and the loss against the Browns, that wasn't on. I mean, yeah, Jordan threw a costly interception in that Browns game, but 60 seconds later, he's got the team back down for a chip shot field goal to win the game. So,
Right.
I think in many ways, Jordan Love, I don't think he's been handcuffed. I've been critical of LaFleur. So look, I know you're kind of setting me up to at like catnip to dive in and take that, but look, like LaFleur, I think he's a masterful offensive mind. I think he just sometimes can get a little cute. I think that's fair to say. That's a criticism that, broadly speaking, a lot of Packer fans have had. He's got a lot of mouths to feed. He can sit up there and say that that's a good problem to have. But sometimes I think that causes him to get a little overly creative in situations where, hey, man, let's just keep the foot to the pedal. Let Jordan rip. My broader point with throwing and being aggressive, especially earlier in possessions, is I would much rather go down with Jordan Love getting 2 attempts to convert on longer down and distance situations than just one on a mid to longer down and distance situation. I think the percentages play in our favor to convert to a first down if we do that more often than not. Certainly it would be helpful not to be in 2nd and 10 situations. And if you can run the ball on first down and it's 2nd and 2, you should get a first down in that every time, regardless of what you do on 2nd down. But that's football. That's going to happen. I think certainly Jordan has proven that he deserves to be the leader and have the ball in his hands and make as many throws as he can as an elite player in this league, an elite quarterback in this league. And, giving Jordan Love 23 to 25 pass attempts a game is not a lot. I mean, he's been very good. He's been efficient this year, but there's really no reason in my mind that against most opponents, getting Jordan Love 30 plus pass attempts, it shouldn't be kind of a goal. That doesn't mean that Josh Jacobs should get less work. But to me, Jordan Love is the key to having a more consistent overall offense. You're going to get more plays, and that's going to give more opportunities for all your playmakers. So let's do what's best to get this offense humming and playing to its full capacity. And I thought we took a really good step in that direction last week. All right, Dane, we should put a bow on this and maybe look ahead really quickly to the Panthers. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this matchup, but before we do that, I just want to thank one of our sponsors, Rehab Lab Wisconsin, and Dr. Sam. Rehab clinics and practitioners work with world-class athletes both in and out of season, as well as patients who simply want to lead a healthier, more active lifestyle. So, Dane, I'm going to hand this over to you. What was the just what the doctor ordered moment of last week's win? When did you feel like the Packers had turned it around and were on the pathway to victory?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know what it was, Wags, was it's kind of a series of events. Packers, were down going into the second half. They march down the field. Tucker Kraft has some really nice work a lot of that game. Packers go and they take the lead right there in that third quarter. And the next series, Rodgers just is under duress by that defense. Now the Packers are up and we see Rodgers take a sack and the defense just looks relentless. And I remember they go to commercial break and they cut to some of the Packer defenders and it looked like those guys were red. They looked fresh and they looked hungry and they looked ready to go. And there was something about that compounding, right? Of the Packers take the lead and then that next series, the defense just brings and gets off the field right away. And they looked confident. They looked ready to go. Was just what the doctor ordered, not only for last week, but maybe something to come for this team is just, the offense doing their part, the defense playing complementary football. It was so wonderful to see. So this week's just what the doctor ordered was that Packer score followed by that defensive stand.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself, Dane. All right, let's look ahead to the Panthers. We don't spend a ton of time on this. Look, we're going to get Bryce Young this week. He's been a full participant in practice. He was out last week. They got routed by the Buffalo Bills. So Bryce Young, I think, has actually had a pretty good season so far. This is a team that has some decent wins on their resume. I know Panthers have been a franchise that have been struggling over the last few seasons, but hey, they gave the Packers all they could handle and last time we played them. And so I think we're going to have to have their full attention. And hopefully the Packers can be ready to go. Up front for Carolina, they've got a really banged up offensive line. They've got 3 starters that look like it's doubtful that they may be playing. I know that they do have their his name's escaping me right now, but it looks like they could have their starting offensive guard that's been on the IR could be returning this week. But this overall is still a very, very banged up offensive front. So talk to me about how the Packers can take advantage of that more so than they were able to against a underwhelming opponent and offensive line in the Cincinnati Bengals a few weeks ago. So what are some things that you're looking for this matchup, particularly with the big guys up front?
It's the key to the game right there, Wags. And they put Brady Christensen on the injured reserve today, offensive line. So you're right. They're super banged up along the offensive line. You're right. We saw Bryce Young last time we saw him. He had a really huge second half against Green Bay. It's a different team, though. It's a different defense, right? I mean, this is the week Devontae Wyatt, who I think is playing at a Pro Bowl level, defensive tackle in line. This is a week that feast against Carolina, just bringing pressure right up the middle, stopping the run. This is what it comes down to is I think the Packers can send 4 and consistently get to the quarterback this week. I think that Carolina is going to have a really hard time running the ball with this banged up offensive line. I think teams have a hard time running the ball, period, against the Green Bay Packer front. But this week in particular at Lambeau, the recipe there is Carolina is going to have to come out and play the game of the season, I think, to be able to consistently win at the point of attack against this Green Bay defense. So that's all it comes down to, right? Is I think that we have a lot of bodies that can do a lot of damage against Carolina, and I expect the Packers defense, especially that front four and that front seven, to be flying around, shooting gaps, and really dominating the line of scrimmage. So that's what I think is going to happen this week, if I'm being totally blunt. Now, it's the NFL. I don't want to oversimplify things. Things get weird in this league any given Sunday, all of that. I respect Carolina because they do, they've been all right. But with the injuries in particular, I just think it's going to be too much. I think Gary and Parsons and this interior defensive line, Colby Wooden, Carl Brooks, I mentioned Devontae Wyatt. I mean, it's going to be a handful, I think, for Carolina. And I'm genuinely not sure how they combat that at a consistent basis to win this football game.
Yeah, and Dane, I think we've been waiting for the Packers defense to get some or force some turnovers in bunches in a game. That hasn't happened yet. They forced some turnovers, but we haven't really seen that 3-4 turnover game yet. Boy, it would be nice if that came this week, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it sure would. And you're right. I mean, and we were close, I thought, last week, right? We had the Cooper had his hands in there, almost had an interception early in the game against Rodgers as well. So there's we're close. I really think we're close. And this is the week potentially, Wags, especially if the Packers can get up early against Carolina and get Carolina into some obvious passing downs. They're going to have a hard time, I think, attacking downfield consistently. And this is just one of those weeks where I think that could happen. And that's what good defenses do. Good defenses do what Green Bay's been doing every week, and they indeed are good. Great defenses just capitalize on opponents that are not up to the level. And I think that this is a week where we see Green Bay's defense go from really, really good to just dominant. I think that they can dominate this game, and I'm not going to mince words. I'm not going to pretend like I think it's going to be close. I think this is a week Green Bay's defense is just overwhelming against Carolina.
I think that's a good time to just segue right into our X factors and score predictions. Dane, why mess around with this one? All right, I'll let you lead off then. Why don't we just stay right with the defense? Who's your defensive X factor going into this one?
It's Carrington Valentine. Last week, Wags, he got a ton of snaps for the Pack, and something that we were hoping we would see. And he was able to get out there, play on the outside. We love Valentine. I mean, go back and watch the tape. We think Carrington Valentine's a strong football player. And it was good to see him get an opportunity last week. I think he's going to get that opportunity yet again. He earned the right to be out there again this week at Lambeau. So as much as I've talked about the front seven, and rightfully so, this is a week where, I think that the quarterback, Bryce Young, is going to try to get the ball downfield at times. They've got some big receivers over there in Carolina, and, they might have to, do some 3-step drops and try to get the ball out quick. And I just expect Carrington Valentine to go out there and maybe get his hands on one this week. We're talking about turnovers. Valentine seems to always be around the ball. He's aggressive at punching balls out and doing his thing. So he's my X factor this week. I want to see him put another really good week together and really solidify his job out there and make sure that he's playing on Sundays, because we just love what he does out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good pick. He was someone I was thinking about. I'm going to go with Edwin Cooper this week, regardless of whether Quay Walker is able to get out there and play his normal number of snaps. I think what I saw from Edwin Cooper in the last couple of games, we're starting to see some more of those impact plays. And this was about the time of season last year that Edwin Cooper just started ascending. He's been fine this season, even for him. Don't get me wrong. I don't think we've quite seen the leap and the high level of impact that many of us were expecting to see from him from game one so far this season. But I'm hoping that maybe this is the week that he kind of hits his stride like he did in the second half of last season. Perhaps Edwin Cooper is just a November, December type of player. I'd love for him to be a full 18 game and plus playoff type of player, but I think we're starting to see some signs of him coming to life, and he's the type of player that can make some of those impact game playing changing plays if he can start ascending and really playing at another level. So I expect that to happen, and I think we're starting to see some signs of it. So if this is the week that maybe he forces a turnover or he gets kind of around the football and is able to poke something out, or maybe even gets an interception, I think I would not be shocked. So I'm going to go with Edwin Cooper as the X factor on the defensive side of the football, not just for a high level impact play. I just feel like his name is about ready to start getting called a little bit more starting this week.
I love it. He's one of my favorite players on the defense. I love it, Wags. I think he's just so darn good. And you're right. I mean, you're right. I think he's due to make a huge play, right? One of those big plays. So I love it. Wags, I'm going to put it back on you. I love the Cooper choice. Give me an offensive player. Who's your offensive X factor this week?
Yeah, man. I think I'm going to go back to the receiver position, and we're going to go with Christian Watson again. I thought what he did last week was very X factor worthy, so I'm just going to stack that. And in all honesty, this is a home game now, coming back to Lambeau Field. Christian Watson loves himself some Sunday afternoon games at Lambeau Field. So he wasn't able to get in the end zone last week, but obviously we talked about at the top, acquitted himself very well. Had a more expanded role than I think any of us were expecting. So I'd like Christian Watson to be an X factor this week, to maybe spring something a little bit deeper, get some more vertical pass game going from Jordan Love. We saw him pick apart the Steelers defense, and certainly was aggressive and throwing the ball downfield. Don't get me wrong, but maybe he gets behind the defense this week and takes it all the way to the end zone. So for that reason, I'm going to go with Christian Watson as my offensive X factor.
That's great. Wags, total coin flip for me between Watson and my choice. I'm going with Matthew Golden, because I think Matthew Golden's getting his first NFL touchdown at Lambeau Field on Sunday. I think he's going to get in the end zone. I think they're going to get him the ball quite a bit, to be honest with you. And some of it is because Christian Watson is going to command some issues, and Tucker Kraft is going to command some attention as well. And that's not to take anything away from Matthew Golden, who's a real talent. I'm just saying there's so many guys on this offense right now that I think are causing problems. And I just think that Jordan's looking out here. I think he's gonna find Golden. They're gonna get Golden that ball a few extra times, and I think Golden's gonna get the ball maybe in some in space, right? And he's gonna be able to do something with it. And so this is the week. Golden's getting in the end zone. He's my X factor this week. I think he's gonna spring a big one this week for us.
I love it. He was my second pick. So Dane, we would have had our 4 X factors no matter what, based on kind of how we lined up. So nice work by us. Honestly, the only reason I didn't pick Golden is I picked him as an X factor several times, and I'd rather be wrong and allow you to pick him as the X factor on the right week so that he can get in the end zone, because this young man deserves to get the ball. He was wide open at the end of the game in that second to last possession the Packers had. Jordan just wasn't looking his way. So that would have been his first touchdown for sure. But yes, I'd love for that to happen this week. So hopefully you're right at my behest, because I picked him many times, and I'm glad that you picked him, and I hope that it comes to fruition this week. So, all right, Dayton, score predictions. I'm just going to throw this out there. I think this is a game the Packers do force some turnovers defensively. I don't know that we're going to need to have an explosive offensive game, but I do think the Packers are going to throw up a bunch of points if they do force 3 turnovers. And I think this might be the week they do that. So if they're operating with a short field on multiple occasions because they're forcing turnovers, I think this one can get lopsided. I hate to look beyond this opponent. I don't think the Packers are going to do that. They've had enough of those games this season. I think they're going to really build off the momentum that they had in that second half against Pittsburgh and put up 38 in this one. So I've got the Packers 38. Panthers maybe getting a late score, Panthers 17. So I think Packers really take care of business with this one, and maybe that score isn't even as close as what this game is at the end. The score looks closer, I should say, than what the game actually is. I think they really put a beating on Panthers this week.
I completely agree. I agree with you on the turnovers. I agree with you on the short field. Honestly, it's kind of semantics at that point. I'm just going to guess because I think we're on the same page. I think it's going to be a signature win for this team this week with some home cooking. But I'm going to go bigger. I'm going to go 41-27 Green Bay. I think the Packers win. I think they put up a ton of points. I think Jordan Love continues his ascension into kind of that conversation outside of Green Bay. We've been talking about Jordan, but I think it's time for, I think others are going to be like, oh, wow. They're going to look at that box score and go, oh my gosh, Jordan Love is a beast. Again, 41-27 for the Packers. Wayne, our good pal, has the Packers 38, Carolina 21 in the chat. John Dorn says Panthers have no pass rush. Love will pick their defense apart. We agree. I think we're optimistic. All of us are optimistic going into this. 41-27, Packers are going to win this football game, Wags. We're going to feel pretty good about them.
I love it. Okay, well, let's not burst any of that optimism. Packers, you just have to do your part now to make us look good, make yourselves look good. We'll be happy if that happens. So, all right, folks, thanks so much for joining us. As always, be legendary and go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.
Every year I know we gonna go hard. We been that team ever since Bart started. All my cheese heads go Pack Go. Ain't showing no mercy, cutting no slack, no. I ain't a bad sport and I'll even wish you good luck. Only thing I will